We are live. Thank you so much for joining me, Dad. I really appreciate it. So, everybody, this is going to be a debate between me and my father, Kaz the second. Technically, we'll talk about that in a second. We're going to be talking about Trump. Dad, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Okay, you want to say anything to the audience, real quick?
Hello, audience. No, go ahead.
Okay. So I'm going to do a quick opening statement real quick, and then I'll let you say what you had to be prepared. But I just wanted to introduce everybody to my father. This is the second Kaz in the lineage. The first Kaz is his father, who was served in World War II, and then I took on the moniker, and I guess my son will probably be a Kaz as well. But yeah, good chance. So, Dad, you and I don't agree about Trump, and we're going to debate that today. I want to quickly talk about my reasons for not wanting to vote for Trump, thinking that he's unfit for president. Um, so let me just quickly caveat that he did do a couple good things. Obviously, nobody's all bad. 6.6 million new jobs his presidency created. Unemployment reached to 3.5%. Indisputable facts that you just have to acknowledge. But other than that, the way that he handled the coronavirus is evidently a thing that detrimented the economy, destroyed everything that he accomplished in his early days. The fact that he lied about the coronavirus in the same vein that the CCP lied to their people, and just his overall attitude towards the coronavirus during the pandemic made everything so much worse. But on top of that, in the end, the economy lost 2.9 million jobs, and the unemployment rate increased by 1.6% at the end to 6.3. I'm going to try to tailor my arguments towards somebody that might disregard most leftist arguments. On top of that, illegal immigration increased. Apprehensions at the southwest border rose at 14.7% compared with 2016. Handgun production rose, but the murder rate rose also. So there's just all kinds of reasons there. On top of that, the emoluments clauses that he violated consistently. The Supreme Court neglected to handle that by unceremoniously dismissing those cases. But Blumenthal versus Trump, Crew versus Trump highlight all of his dealings, and I can go into that more detail later. And also, he's going to split the red vote. If you are a conservative and you wish to see the ideals of Trumpism enacted, it's probably not going to be a good idea to vote for Trump in the first place, because Ron DeSantis is now gaining steam, and with that comes a battle between them to see who will shirk first. So that's pretty much my entire argument, and I'll give it to you.
Okay. Well, primarily, I'm not here to dispute all those specific things that you brought up, because the only thing I'm really interested in hearing the ones that say he's not fit to be president. Because every president has pros and cons. Naturally, they also have opposing opinions from the other side, which are criticisms generally, and even things that are done well can be criticized. So I'm going to make my case for why we not only is Trump fit for president, but actually the most fit president that we need at this time of American history, the one we happen to be living in. So, if you want to go back to your introduction and pull something out of there, you say is actually a disqualifier, not just in the minds of any particular voter. I mean, you're going to take your preference. You're going to do that. But do you have something that says this guy just should not be president? I'm tossing it back to you.
You toss it back to me? Oh, okay. Well, my arguments are intended to be the ones that are unequivocally the ones that would say he's unfit. The emoluments clauses, the failure of his economy, which is of course tied to coronavirus, but that's also tied to the way he handled it. Um,
Yeah,
what else
but
do I got?
okay, I'm going to interrupt you here if you don't mind.
Sure.
As far as the coronavirus thing, basically it was started out being handled as was recommended by a whole lot of people, even on both sides, but particularly from the medical establishment, and was the pattern that was followed quite widely all around the world. As far as I understand, there were only two countries that did not do the lockdown uh, procedures in the whole world. And in the United States, there was one state that totally didn't lock down. So when we're going into a situation that we don't really know how it's going to come out, let's face it, when 2019 started opening up this information to us, we were quite concerned. All of us. We didn't really know how bad this thing was going to get. And the advice was close the economy for 2 weeks and let's flatten the curve. Well, very optimistic. Didn't work out, and we ended up being in the same boat for about a year and a half. So, if we're going to say that's a disqualifier, it disqualifies a whole lot of people in this world. And quite frankly, the president is not supposed to be the one who provides all our medical advice. Did I say that right?
Sure.
Okay. Plus,
Okay.
if we know a little bit more about what's going on in the world, the big players on the world stage are also planning on using these basic methodologies again. So we could expect future lockdowns on the next pandemic that comes out. That whole framework is being built. Joe Biden is actually contributing to that. The setup of the framework. Whether you agree with it or not, that's what's going on. So now in the future, the next pandemic, we're either going to be subject to the same draconian measures, or we're going to have to resist it. So my point for Trump is, he's already on board to resist it. We're going to need him and his supporters if we're going to resist going through the same lockdown, masking, blah, blah, blah stuff over again. Go ahead.
Okay. So I would agree that we are going to need the mass of supporters as far as the numbers go to do anything good in this world, but I don't think we need Trump for that. My arguments about the coronavirus they're not going to be tied specifically to his policy decisions because obviously I wasn't there. I don't have the perspective to really judge objectively whether or not each of those decisions was the best thing to do. All I can do is look at the results and say whether or not it was the best. Now, clearly, the projections for what it could have been are much higher than what it was. So his actions did, in fact, reduce the deaths compared to what they could have been. But did they reduce as much as he could have done? And my arguments about that are centered around the first weeks when he was publicly downplaying, and the 11 million Wuhan residents were unaware of the virus as well. But he was getting private briefings about the situation, and he continued to downplay the situation to the public, saying that we're preparing for annual Congress in January despite increase. I'm sorry. That's not a quote. I'm sorry. He was saying that he always wanted to play it down. That in an interview with I can't remember the interviewer's name. I'm sorry, but he said he still likes playing it down because he didn't want to create a panic, and that was the same logic that the CCP used. And in both cases, we saw massive amounts of death and destruction of the economy. So we look at what he did before the coronavirus. We look at how he handled the coronavirus, and then how the economy looked afterwards, and we see that the economy wasn't better off. Maybe if the coronavirus never happened, but also maybe if he had done it better. We can't know for sure. But we do look at the numbers objectively, and we see they're not better at the end of his presidency than at the beginning.
Well, of course, we can't we can't know what the alternative results would have been. I'm hearing you suggest basically, I think, that they would have been marginally better under some other administration.
No, no, no. I'm not
Yes.
suggesting that at all. I have no idea. All I'm saying is that we can see objectively by the numbers his presidency did not affect the economy in a positive way, and that's all I
Well,
want to say about
no,
that.
okay. Just for one more minute, we're staying on Corona, okay?
Okay.
Because the economy is really a whole different ball of wax here. So, I mean, if unless you could say if we had a different president, if Joe Biden or let's say Hillary Clinton was the president at the time, that we would have had less loss of lives, then you've got an argument. But of course, this is something we can't prove.
No.
Everything could be better. Always, we could have always done things better, no matter what the thing is. We could have got to the moon 2 weeks sooner. I don't know what. Everything could have been done better. But as it is as acceptable, or was it needlessly worse? So are you telling me that Trump being the president at the time made coronavirus needlessly worse? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, I'm saying that his lies, his downplaying of the virus, and the situation at hand led to more deaths than could have if he had not lied.
Okay,
I mean,
but
in any situation,
I need to hear
the
a
lie,
connection. What lie actually caused death?
the the lie that the virus was going to disappear, that it was just going to go away in the
That's
springtime, that it was a hoax by the Democrats, which is more technically involved with that lie. It's not really that he's lying that the virus was a lie, but that the situation at hand was a hoax by the Democrats, right? But
well, I don't
he
know. I never heard anything like that. Go ahead.
he made many statements to that nature. I mean, we could be here all day just disputing just those
Well,
conversations.
I'm acknowledging the fact that he did say he was speaking in rosy tones concerning our getting over this thing in short order, and he did admit that he was trying to avoid panic. He was trying to keep an upbeat, kind of thing, which I don't have a problem with personally, because the virus itself is going to do whatever viruses do, and with its own unique nature, which we didn't yet understand. And then the natural, the immune response of the body is there to take care of these things. No president can keep you from getting any virus, and even the CDC can't. The methodologies that they recommended, maybe they prevented it. I don't know. To some degree or another, could have been a little worse, could have been a little better. I don't know. But the things they did do, the recommendations that were followed, had a very detrimental effect on many parts of society and the economy.
I'm
So
not going
now
to dispute that there were detriments, like from lockdowns, for instance, right? I mean, anytime you affect a system, you're going to risk perturbing it in a negative way. But the question is, what would have happened had he not done those at all, or had we not done any lockdowns at all? And we saw from the projected numbers of deaths that they would have been much, much higher had we not done anything.
I don't know that that's a valid scientific fact at all.
Well, hopefully
The-
we never have to find out.
Well, we do need to figure it out, because we were told that if we mask, we won't get it, or we won't spread it to somebody else. Neither of those are valid.
I don't
If
think we were
get
told
the-
that.
Well, that was the advertising campaign.
I think that
If
it's
you
clear
didn't
that the CDC was not optimal in its communication, because we have 300 million lay people as the population of the United States. They don't understand scientific rhetoric or medical jargon. And when you use that kind of thing to communicate the risk, which you kind of have to be precise, you're going to confuse people. And when they're saying that the masks are going to reduce the particle transmissions certain number of time, a certain percentage, then people will interpret that as, oh yeah, well, the masks are going to work, so I'm going to be fine. And that's not really the case. A mask is just one little piece of the entire plan that was to reduce the load to the hospital system. so that people wouldn't die, because the general public wasn't really in danger. Most people would have been fine getting the virus. The problem is that if it's so widespread, it's going to compactify the overflow of patients inside the hospital system and
Right.
create all kinds of other problems. And that's what did happen.
Well, it began to happen. We're taking the load off of the hospital system and all that. That was the main intent of the flattening the curve and everything.
Right.
Okay. Other things could have been done, and other things were done. New York was particularly hard hit, and so they brought in what? Two ships were available, hospital ships. They brought them in. The one got brought in, and it never got used. And other space was freed up for handling all the huge numbers of COVID, because we were kind of picturing the 1918 influenza. How bad could this thing be? It didn't turn out to be anywhere near that. Okay, but those were the preparations that were made. It doesn't have to be lockdown. It doesn't have to be masks. It doesn't have to even be a vaccine. Okay, all these things were tried, and we all learned something along the way. But I don't think you're going to have changed that equation a whole lot, no matter who you had as president.
Well, I mean, that may be the case. Maybe Hillary Clinton would have been elected, and then she would have lied the exact same way that Trump did, and we would have had the exact same problems. We can only hold the people accountable who commit the acts, and we can't hold people accountable for their hypothetical acts.
Okay, but if you want to hold somebody accountable for coronavirus, then you ought to be talking to China, and you should even be talking to Fauci, and these people that were not only involved in the financing of some of this stuff.
Yeah, we need to get into that, because that's
we're
what
not
we're
going
talking
to
about,
go
the
into all
emoluments.
that. I'm just saying there's a lot of other people who had more connection to all this stuff than the president, who has very little control over viruses, doesn't he? So anyways, I want to move to the next point, which you said was the resulting effect on the economy. Well, the economy came down a lot, didn't it?
Yeah.
But the economy had a long way to come down, because prior to this virus coming out and the lockdowns, Trump had increased the economy through tax cuts, through cutting of regulations to a large degree. We had such, like you pointed out early in your opening, the unemployment had dropped significantly. Employment itself, unemployment's great. Employment is another issue. And not only did we add so many new jobs, I got this over here somewhere. Oh, we added so many new jobs, we actually ended up with new jobs that weren't even fulfilled. I can find it. I got so many things here, I got to stop making notes because the list is too long. 3.5% unemployment, 40 months more job openings in a row. 40 months in a row, more jobs were being made.
Yeah, I saw that one.
Yeah. And coronavirus came in and kind of screwed it. The one that hurt us wasn't Trump, it was China, that Wuhan lab.
Well, it's like I said, he mirrored their behavior with his deception in his attempt to try to socially engineer our panic, when he should just let us be free. I would think as a conservative, that should be a principle you'd like to affirm, that Americans should be free to panic or not panic as we shall. We just give us the information and let us do what we're going to do.
We were. This is why I don't really understand why you're blaming Trump. Regardless of what he said, whether he thought it was going to be a mild thing, or whether it was going to pass, or whether we should get the shot or not, I'm still an adult. I'm making my own decisions. And if I don't make my decisions, if I just take the word of somebody out there and say, well, okay, then I still have it's still my responsibility whose advice I'm listening to. You can get advice from both sides. There was plenty of contradictory advice. You still have to use your own mind and judgment and make your choice. I still don't have a vaccine, and I don't know if you're never going to get one of those vaccines.
I mean, I'll concede that the personal responsibility aspect definitely takes some measure of responsibility off of any individual when it comes to giving guidance or orders or direction in a situation. Just because my Nazi commander orders me to kill the Jews does not mean that he's absolved of any kind of liability in that situation, just because I have my own mind and can decide not to do it, though. Don't you agree?
Yes, it's a requirement. You must make up
Right.
your own mind. You must take responsibility for your decisions, regardless who's advising you. Your
But
president,
he
your
will still have
pastor.
some. My Nazi commander would still have some kind of liability in that situation,
Well,
right?
that's what they thought at Nuremberg.
I mean, you would agree, right?
Yes,
Moralistically, you give the order to kill the
yes,
Jew, and somebody else follows it. It's still
yes.
your
If you're
responsibility.
being ordered to kill somebody and you do it, then yes.
It's why we hold
We're not talking about a command
contract.
here, though. We're not talking about command when we talk about the coronavirus. The only ones who were
No,
trying to command us was Joe Biden.
Joe
He's the
Biden
one
wasn't even
that put the
president,
mandates on for healthcare workers and for the military, which, as far as I know, are the only two mandates still hanging out there.
but
The
that's within his
states,
purview, right? That's in
pardon me?
his. That's within his purview. That's his.
Well, I'm not sure,
That's
but
his
let's
lane,
say
right?
yes. Let's say yes. I don't know.
It's
He
not
pulled it off.
tyranny as long
It
as he's
got
staying in
done.
his as long as he stays in his lane. It's not tyranny, right?
You're cute. I don't know if it's in his if it's his job or not. Okay, he's done a few things that, and you'll find things that Trump tried to do that were rejected. Okay, that's good. There's nothing wrong with trying it out. If the court says otherwise, then you're going to have to back down. That's happened with probably all presidents. But the mandate has not been taken off,
You
and
you
that's
could,
from
could
Joe.
easily convince me that Joe Biden is the second worst president in U.S. history, and I probably wouldn't put up too much of a fight. I'm not trying to defend Joe Biden in this debate at all whatsoever, or the Democrats, or any other institution. I'm just merely trying to
Yes,
demonstrate
but what you are
that
doing is, here's what you're doing. You're saying that because Trump recommended this or that, he is liable for the lives of those people who may have died from that decision.
yes,
Whereas, but by that measure, anybody who dies from the virus, from the vaccine itself, would fall on the head of Joe Biden using your logic. I'm not even prepared to do that.
I'm
I'm
prepared to
not
do that.
even prepared to do that.
If you mandate that a person takes a vaccine, and they die, that is your moral liability. I totally agree. Is there a calculation to be made as to the cost benefit analysis of whatever that is? Like, how many people are actually going to be affected? How many people would be helped versus killed? And what is the overall effect on the world? Maybe the greater good or the lesser evil in that case. But when it comes to lying, to telling a lie, to say this virus is not going to be a big deal, it's going to just come and go like the wind, and it's just not going to be a thing. That is an intentional act to modify the narrative in people's minds.
Okay. Do you believe every television commercial that you see on TV?
No, but I would
Okay.
totally be for prosecuting some advertisers in some
Well, then
situations.
you would probably have to prosecute all advertisers because they paint rosy pictures about a lot of things.
You ever seen that
Okay.
movie, The Invention of Lying, where they have those
No,
advertisements of Coke?
no, I
No,
didn't.
okay, check it out.
So, so if you're going to say somebody's recommendation is tantamount to lying, and then they have to be responsible for your choice.
Well, it wasn't just a recommendation. He was saying that this virus will come and go. That's a statement of fact
And
or
it will.
non.
Okay, he's not God. He can't say when it's going to come and go. He was hopeful it will come, and you don't know for a fact that if we had just let it play out its course, it wouldn't be have gone its course a lot faster. I
If we
said
had let it
early,
play out its course, it certainly would have gone by a lot faster. But like I said, the swell of patients would overwhelm the healthcare system even more, and there would have been even more death.
Mhm. Okay, so actual actions were taken for that. I've been to the hospital ship. They thought ventilators was the thing to do. I think that turns out to be totally wrong. But the preparations, lack of lowered regulations so they can produce the ventilators faster, movements to get a hold of other PPE, and here's another one that nobody's mentioning. Okay, he was also recommending the alternative therapies. We call them therapies, right?
Ivermectin.
Ivermectin,
Oh,
the
no.
with the quina, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
With
yeah.
zinc, blah blah
Hydrochloroquine.
blah. Those things were used by a lot of doctors with fine success. That was he recommended that, got his head chopped off for it. And you guys, that is to say, the people on the left, did everything they could to mock and put down that whole thing. So,
Well, every study that came out looking at those things didn't show an actual objective benefit to them.
okay, studies.
I mean, how else would you if you
How else?
get a
Look at-
virus that you wait, hold on, let me just say this real quick. If you get a virus that almost everybody gets better from, right? And then you take whatever, X. You take X and you still get better. How do you know that X was the thing that got you better?
Yeah, okay, that's a fine scientific argument.
You have to do a
The
study.
information I'm going from is from actual doctors who use the treatment protocols.
But
Okay.
doctors are anecdotes. They don't do studies. They just give their
Yes,
patients
but
something
they
and
are
say, "Did they
anecdotes
get better?
dealing-
I'm happy."
They're anecdotes that are dealing with actual live people.
Sure.
People
Like
who
when
have
they
gone
just
through.
give people antibiotics because they don't know what it is and they don't care. They're not going to do a screening to look at all the pathogens. They're not going to check to make sure it's a virus or whatever. They're always going to just do the thing that's most cost benefit, has the best cost benefit. I'm sorry.
You're saying my doctors with the anecdotes are doing what's the best cost benefit
Of course.
for the patient?
It's all
or for
economics.
themselves?
Capitalism
For the
is
patient?
pervasive.
For the patient or for themselves?
I'm sure it's a balancing act.
You think? Because you
Oh,
can get
oh, yeah.
those drugs. You can get those drugs rather cheaply, but you can't get the vaccine cheaply. Oh yeah, you
Sure.
can, but the country can't. We're paying for that in the future. So if you want a cost benefit analysis, you went the wrong way. You'd have done better with the ivermectin.
The cost benefit for an
Just saying.
individual doctor could be, let's not speculate. I don't care. I don't want to
You
talk
know where
about
the
the speculation.
look at you're trying to be naive or something. You know that there was so much big bucks made in this vaccine push. And it's
Sure,
still
but
gonna
they
be
also limited how much money they could have made by going the public route.
limited. You're telling me it's cheaper to buy it from the federal government? You
I'm
know how
saying
much a
that
hammer
when
and a toilet seat costs? No, they
Well-
probably overpaid for all that stuff. And who you want to talk emoluments? You don't even know whose pocket that money went into.
that's fine. I can totally concede that it's very possible that
Okay.
you have a great point there.
All right, but
Um,
now we're totally off track because none of this really has much to do with Trump at all.
right. I don't want to. That's why I want to divert back to the emoluments because that's my biggest gripe when it comes to
All right.
objectively showing that he.
I'm
is
not going to
unfit.
let you get too far with the emoluments. There is cases that you're pointing to. I've seen your list that theoretically will deal with this. That's case pending, and when you actually get charges and something happens, then we can talk about that. Until then, it's just a complaint from the left.
It's
That-
not a complaint. They are
It's a
cases.
complaint.
They were brought and they were shown to have merit in the lower courts. But
Okay.
when they got to the Supreme Court, Trump Supreme Court, they unceremoniously dismissed it on the basis of, well, he's no longer president anymore, so who gives a shit?
Well, I don't know how much of that is true. But anyways,
Well,
I haven't
assume
even
that it's
heard
true.
about
We can
it.
assume
I
that it's
haven't
true.
even-
We can assume that it's partially true.
I'm not assuming anything. I haven't even heard about it on the larger media. I haven't even heard of anybody bringing cases on emoluments.
I have.
In fact,
I'll
you're
have
the
all
only
the-
person I've ever used the term emoluments in connection with Trump.
Really,
I'm
this has
sorry.
been from
I mean, I
from
pay
the more-
attention.
from the
somebody
more
point out-
educated
somebody
anti-Trumpers.
text me an
This has been a
article.
consistent one.
Well,
Here, I got I got all the articles right here. I got them
Well,
all.
just
Here.
send me one, and I'll look at it later. But I'm not doing emoluments now because you don't have a case.
I'll send them
The
to
other-
you,
what was
and I'll put them in the description.
The other one is the case at Mar-a-Lago with the documents, the folders that are marked top secret or whatever, classified.
Right. Obstructing justice.
Well,
so those cases are still pending.
It's only obstructing justice if there's some justice to obstruct. So we have to let all that play out.
Well, the justice is the documents getting to where they're supposed to be.
Only if there are documents to get there.
Well, there certainly are documents. They already got them back.
There may be documents, and they may or may not be classified. So, I mean, all of this has to be determined. So you bring it. You can have this on another podcast or whatever you call it. Not today.
Okay.
Not doing it today.
But let's talk about the foreign states paying for space in Trump-owned towers.
I don't care about that.
Why
They're
not?
going to stay somewhere. I don't care.
That's what I want to know. Why don't you care about that?
Because it's capitalism, and somebody's going to be paid for that stuff. It's so trivial. You're not going to keep. Would you throw Winston Churchill out of the premiership, or even Franklin Delano Roosevelt because of things like this? You see, this is the whole idea here is he fit or not?
He's unfit because of this.
Because he has a hotel.
No, because he's using his position as presidency to enrich himself. He forewent the measly $400,000 because he knew that there was much more economic opportunity.
Okay. Well, if you got a real case there, I'm willing to listen to it.
Well, the cases were taken to the court, and the court said that there was a real case there, but the Supreme Court said no. So what am I supposed to do now?
I don't know.
Sounds like corruption to me.
You can get courts. You get courts to say this and that, and then they go back, and then this one. That's why they go to the Supreme Court. You don't like that system. Maybe it's because you don't like who's on the court.
Here, I got one for you. A Chinese state-owned company was awarded a multi-million-dollar contract to help Trump develop golf courses in Dubai, the UAE, amid the U.S.-China trade war.
Okay.
Which was then later cooled off.
The trade war was, I understood, was tariff swapping, basically.
Sure.
Tariffs.
However, the trade war unfolded.
We didn't stop
I know
trading
that you personally have a gripe with how China handles its business. So how do you feel about Trump being enriched personally from Chinese money?
I don't have a problem with how China handles their business. I have a problem with how we handle China's business, what we do with China. And until we're all ready to get on the same page and decouple, we're stuck. So it's not illegal. It's not really worth this conversation. It's a philosophical difference. And we might even feel the same way on the matter, but let's move. What else you got?
This is what I got. This is what I want to talk about. I want to talk about all these different ways in which Trump is being enriched through his presidency. Prime Minister of Malaysia had dozens of members of his diplomatic delegation stay at the Trump's Washington, D.C. hotel, with the Prime Minister reportedly traveling from the hotel in a motorcade straight to the White House for a meeting with the president.
Did they complain about that? Or did somebody else complain about it?
What's the Malaysian Prime Minister? Why would he complain?
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out. What is the problem here?
The problem is that it is blatant corruption.
Well, you haven't even shown that it's corruption. Why is it a problem if they stay at a Trump hotel? Is it okay if they stay at a Hilton?
It's okay if they stay at any hotel. I don't care, as long as it's not enriching somebody who's involved in it. As long as it's not a bribe.
Well, I don't know if it's a bribe. So you pay.
Well, you do know if it's a bribe.
You pay for it.
He could stay at any hotel. He chose Trump. It's a bribe.
All right. I'm not going to mess with that, Sam. I don't know what. It's a business transaction. If they had a problem with staying there, or if it was cost too much, you can talk about that. But just because he stays there?
Oh
What
yeah,
if
he
he's got-
overcharged everybody. He
Okay.
overcharged the United States government. He overcharged the Secret Service. He overcharged everybody.
Okay. How do they
All
like
that's
it?
documented in financial disclosures.
How do they like it?
How do they like it?
How do they like it? Because they overpay for everything. You know that.
Is how do we like it? We are the American people. How do we like it? How do you
take-
like it?
We don't. It doesn't bother us at all because we've been putting up with this kind of stuff for decades.
And why?
There's nothing
Should
new
we?
here. Why should we?
He's
Because
supposed to be
we don't
draining the
care.
swamp, not being the swamp.
You got to fix the swamp. Yeah.
This
You
is
don't like
swamp
those
behavior.
kind of things.
This is swamp shit.
All right. Okay, you win that one. And I got something. I want to get into the future here, okay? Because that's
Let's go.
to me, this is all past stuff. It's mostly is small-ish, and
I'm sure Biden has violated the emoluments clause at some point, and I'm so happy to see him impeached for it. He is not fit to be president if that's the case.
well, we'll see if we can get to that. So here's what happened when Trump announced his candidacy. I'm gonna have to read a little bit here. I hope that's not gonna be
Which candidacy? This one or the last one?
a new one. Yes, the latest. So, this is a quote, in order to make America great and glorious again, I am tonight announcing my candidacy for president of the United States. He referred to not his campaign, but our campaign, saying that only the force, quote, strong enough to defeat the massive corruption we are up against is you, the American people. Together, we will be taking on the most corrupt forces and entrenched interests imaginable. Our country is in a horrible state. We're in great trouble. America's comeback starts right now. 2 years ago, when I left office, our nation stood ready for its golden age. We turned the page on decades of globalist sellouts and one-sided trade deals, lifted millions out of poverty, and together we built the... Sorry, noisy. Please forgive me.
It's all good.
You'll live through it. Greatest economy in the history of the world.
Short-lived as it was.
What's that?
Short-lived as it was.
Well, yeah, coronavirus came around, didn't it?
Did.
Did you already forget the good times we had? The finances, the economy? I mean, the numbers
It didn't
are just,
affect me.
okay. Well, it didn't
I mean,
affect me
it
too
didn't
much
affect
either.
most people. I don't think
Didn't
that
affect me
these
too much.
numbers going up and down a little bit affects most people on a microscopic scale.
Right, individually, but you are in a better environment. If so many other people around you are getting pay raises,
Then why did the murder rate go up?
murder rate did went up when?
And the suicide rate has gone down since he left office.
Yeah, right. Believe that. People kill themselves because Trump was president. That's interesting. Which kind of people were killing themselves when Trump was president? Were they Democrats?
I
or
have no idea.
Republicans?
I don't know. I just looked at the numbers.
Well, you might have to.
If you want me to speculate, I would guess it's because of the uncertainty of the future.
Gail says nobody left the country who said they were going to when he got president. Anyway, so we've got issues here, okay? I've talked to you on other occasions about the bureaucracy. It's the main reason why Trump is not supposed to be president is because he doesn't play the politician's game. He's not a bureaucrat. He's not a politician. The bureaucrats are just ticked off because he's in there messing up their game. And that's why
that
we
would
need
be
him,
fine if
because that
sorry, go ahead.
bureaucracy is coming down harder and harder. The DOJ, the FBI, they're spending a lot of time on things is more trivial than the things you're bringing up. You know, parents at PTA meetings and stuff like this. Hundreds of people locked up from January 6th with actual armored vehicles and cadres of FBI agents going in to bring them up because they're on a video on the area of January 6th. this is where your fear should be. Trump is not. The fear should be that you're actually losing all your fundamental rights as an American,
Well, I mean,
and
I
that the
I see. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, go ahead, I'll let you.
I see what your point there. I understand that you feel that the people of January 6th were well within their rights. Most of them probably weren't violent necessarily. So you're thinking that this is an injustice. Um, to me, the fact that they were there and the behaviors that went on make them all accomplices to the worst of it. It's just like if I were to go with a bunch of buddies to a bank and one of them decides to rob it, I'm going to get arrested for that. Um, we all have to weigh the
Okay,
morality of what we endorse. And
we're
that
not gonna.
January 6th thing was not moral by any means.
Well, it was half moral and half immoral, and maybe we need to do this in quarters because not everybody there deserve to be in prison right now where they're at. They're still in jail. Not all of them. There have been some suicides,
Well, we
but
went through
at
the
the same
list. A lot
time,
of them have been released, and the whole cases have been dispensed with probation or uh, personal
when
recognizance
you
bonds and all kinds of stuff.
yes, and but a lot haven't. And then the whole idea of the American thing is you go through the system. It's supposed to be it's supposed to get due process, and not everybody's got it. Now, how many do we want to say is okay? How many incidents of Gestapo like tactics can we say is okay? We can
None,
tolerate that. All right.
none.
So we still got it. Still going on. Who's willing to fight against that? Are you? Can you trust that Joe Biden is going to fight against that sort of thing? Overreach by the DOJ, the FBI, or is it actually being encouraged? And do you really think that we can count on Mike Pence or Ron DeSantis to actually make this a core issue in his presidency and stand up to this stuff? And how
So,
how how trashed would DeSantis be if he did try to do it? If DeSantis tried to follow the Trump playbook in the next election after getting elected in 24, how long would he last before they trash him as bad as they did Trump? Now, there's plenty of
um,
things to criticize Trump for. There's no doubt. On a personal basis, you can have problems with him. But as a president, he was for all of us. And you cannot get hardly any other Republican to be that way. And there is
okay,
no way you're going to get a Democrat to be that way. So that's
let
the
me
only guy left. Go ahead.
let me refute that. So, let me just ask you really quick: what is an American? What is the criteria to be an American?
I don't know. There is a criteria.
Well, I
I
mean,
don't know. I don't know. If you,
the bare minimum, born on American soil, right?
yeah, that makes you a citizen automatically. So that's a
I
simple
mean,
ticket.
that's the only reason why I'm an American citizen, right? That's the only reason why you are. We were born here,
Okay.
right? So when Trump goes on his interviews and he says he's looking, quote, we're looking at very seriously birthright citizenship, where you have a baby on our land, you walk over the border, have a baby, congratulations, the baby is now a U.S. citizen. It's frankly ridiculous.
Hmm.
So he's not for American citizens. He's
No,
against
that's
a huge swath of American citizens.
the first thing is you don't even know when that started,
I,
and I
I don't
bet you
care.
don't know why it started. You think it's for the boat people, for the people crossing the border. It was for the Black Americans.
Okay.
It was not so much to get people into citizenship, but it was to guarantee what should have been considered existing citizenship.
Sure.
Okay. Now
I
we're
think that still
using it.
applies today.
Now we're using it. Well, it doesn't need to apply today, does it? Do we have that racial issue going to these days? No. It was brought in. it was brought up back for the boat people, which were the ones coming across mostly to Florida.
If it's
So
not this, then what is it?
it's not what? I'm sorry.
If the criteria for being born an American is being born on American soil, if that's not it, then we're going to say what? It's just anybody born of a American person? I guess that would be the next logical step, right?
I don't know. I assume there's some kind of rules on the books already. If they need adjustment, we can look at that. I'm not even sure why you're asking this question.
Because it seems to me that being born on American soil is the obvious and best way to delineate American citizens. So if somebody's born here and you say, well, I want to take away that right of you to be a citizen just because you were born here, that is like taking away my right to be a citizen.
Wait a second. If you change the rule on being born here as simply, if you take that rule away, if you nullify that rule, it's not going to nullify the citizenship of anybody who's already here, is it?
I don't know. It depends on if it's retroactive or not.
You seem to think maybe it would. It would be retroactive.
Well,
People would have citizenship yanked away from them because we've changed the rule.
I'm not so naive as to think that Trump would not at least try to make it retroactive, even if he wasn't able to.
Okay. Well, I don't know. You've got some kind of warped idea about this guy. I don't know where you get all this stuff from. Well, the guy's an American too. He's as American as Don King. Okay. I don't understand.
He's as American as Jeffrey Dahmer too.
No, Jeffrey Dahmer's. No.
Well, he's dead, so I guess he's not American anymore or whatever.
Don King.
Okay.
So this is.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't come into this thinking that I was going to change your mind. I'm sure you didn't come into this thinking that you were going to change my mind. I'm really concerned that if something like the emoluments clause, which is Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, I think, if this can just be violated and we just don't care,
then I care.
Why wouldn't we're basically opening the door and saying just elect a Manchurian candidate, elect whatever you want because it doesn't matter. We're saying that.
Take the emoluments clause to the court, get a conviction, and now you've just answered. You win the argument. You win this debate. That's all you got to do.
Well, give me a fair Supreme Court, and I will.
I can't do that.
No, you took it away from me by electing Trump.
I can't do that. But they impeached him 2 times. He gets a record on that too. You guys don't like him saying I'm the best. I'm the best with impeachments. I got 2. Nobody else has got 2 impeachments. But where are they? No convictions.
Well, I mean, the impeachments were convictions. He just was not punished. The sentencing.
The Senate convicts.
An impeachment is the House does the impeachment, and that is the conviction, and then the Senate does the sentencing, which is
in
this case.
Impeach just means to question somebody's integrity. Okay, you're impeaching Trump all the time with a lot of your statements. Okay. You can do that, but they have to. When you say emoluments, he's guilty of violating the emoluments. That's an impeachment on your part. Now you got to take it to a court and get it proven, a conviction. Then you actually established it. Otherwise, it's just opinion, basically. Okay, makes sense.
It makes sense in an objective framework, sure. The question is, can we reasonably infer that there was some kind of guilt there?
You can infer it all you want. Now you got to prove it
reasonably.
It's the same thing with Biden and Hunter and his deal over there in Ukraine and all that stuff. It's all been inferred, implied, even accused. But it doesn't matter until it takes to a court or some body of authority that can rule on it.
I mean, if that's the case, how many criticisms of any candidate are ever litigated in court? I mean, if we use that razor, I mean, we can't criticize Joe Biden much. We can't, because he's never been convicted of anything. Can't criticize anybody. What are we going to do?
No, we can criticize. You and me are the people. All the people who are listening are on this thing are the people. We could criticize all day long as Twitter don't shut us up or the federal government. We're allowed to do that, and we don't even have to have strong arguments or proof of any sort. And that we vote for him. So this is why you can vote for Trump or not, even though I think your reasons for saying he's not fit are weak. But you
If-
still have that because you, as the people, that's how we make our decision. You vote for him, I vote against him. Poof, there you go. We don't
I
have
think
to
it,
have all that. And we can't get all that. We cannot get everybody convicted for all the crimes that they're guilty of. In fact, you and I probably haven't been convicted of all the crimes we've committed.
sure,
Okay.
but
So
doesn't mean that we shouldn't.
if you're waiting for perfect justice to get the best president available, then you're too bad. You're not going to get it. But
Well,
the
that's
way
an
this
unfair
world is
assessment.
shaping up, man, with the federal government getting more and more power, if you want to stop the fascist sake from taking over, you better get on board because the globalists are all over this stuff.
Okay,
That's why you need to look back into what I was saying
hold on.
earlier with Biden helping with this next pandemic preparation stuff. They'll be dictating the rules. You think Fauci had influence? The World Health Organization and those other people are going to have influence like you won't believe. And we won't be able to say we're not following these lockdown rules because we're America and we're sovereign. Those things can go away. We may lose sovereignty on a whole bunch of different issues when you let the globalists take over. And
I
it's not
understand.
just COVID, it's also equity, diversity, and what's the other one that they like? Oh, the climate change stuff. Okay. Find somebody
Okay,
to fight that.
what part of that do you want me to respond to? That was a lot.
I want you to respond just to the whole overall thing that's going on. We're losing sovereignty as a nation, and who's going to stand up and try to protect
Okay,
us against that?
why do you think that we're losing sovereignty as a nation?
Well, I just told you.
Because the World Health
COVID rules.
Organization has given us guidelines in the past.
They're
I mean,
building
they
the
don't have,
guidelines now.
but they don't have any kind of legal power to do anything
They
as
do if
far
we
as
cede it to
you
them.
and I, right?
They have the power if we cede it to them. If
Yeah,
a
if we cede it to
government
them.
if a government signs onto it, much like signing a treaty, okay? You sign the treaty, now you're bound to something that's beyond the normal bailiwick of your country.
Okay, but
Now you're gone.
if you want to avoid a tyranny of this kind, then you need to only elect people who revere the Constitution
Right.
and the spirit with which it was written. And
Yes,
if
sir.
you're willing to ignore something like the emoluments clause, then why not everything else?
The Constitution provides for Trump to get nailed under emoluments if that's what needs to be done. Okay? Let the Constitution, let the system take care of that. I'm more worried about what our future is going to look like.
Well, just let
Because
the system take care of it.
I don't try people. I don't put the president on trial. I
you
need
you you haven't put Joe Biden on trial in your mind. Come on.
in my mind, but still, even if I do, that's not binding.
No, there's
I
nothing
can't even
binding about any of our
I
opinions.
can't
I'm
even
not.
throw.
I don't have the power to throw Trump in jail, but I can look at this and I can say I'm not voting for that guy. And if you want me to vote for him, you're going to tell me why I'm wrong.
I don't care if you vote for him. I don't care.
Well, you do because you believe that this election was stolen,
No,
right?
you're just one person.
Yeah, I'm
You're
just
just
one
one
person, but
person.
I represent a demographic. I represent people of my like mind.
Well,
Every one of
yeah,
us, you do too. There's a million people that think just like you about any one thing that you think. None of them think the
sure,
same way as you about
sure,
all those things.
right.
So,
Yeah, I'm most, and I like my kind of people because my kind of people are concerned about the future of this country.
and so are mine.
My kind of people are the ones that put Trump in the office the first time.
So are mine, actually, because my
Yours?
kind of people are the ones that didn't vote for Hillary Clinton.
Okay, in that regard, you helped. But where's your spirit at?
But saying that lack of voting for Hillary Clinton was a dissatisfaction with her and the Democratic Party in general, and her being a strong representative of the DNC. But so we sit down, we sit back, and we say, you know what, we're going to let Trump have his chance, right? Then we look at him objectively, and we say, well, now I'm not satisfied either. So now we have to look for another, right? That's how it has to go. It can't be, well, Trump's better than all the rest of these assholes, so we're going to stick with him no matter what, because that's a road to perdition, isn't it?
I know what you're saying. No, it. I'm gonna go into this direction here for you. All right, we're at a situation much I would say is similar to the point of the Revolutionary War. Okay, where our rulers, our ruling class, which was England at the time, starting getting too oppressive upon the people. Up until that time, we were living as colonialists under their rule, which probably sucked to a fair degree, but it was still bearable. And then they started getting to the point where they had to bring on more to bear on our backs. And they started getting too cocky, sending in their troops. This is much like what I would say the FBI doing their raids. Middle of the night, take an old guy out of his home with automatic weapons, cuff him, and run him off and that thing like he's John Dillinger. We get more and more of this kind of stuff happening. It emboldens them even more. This is the situation we've got. Now you need a leader in the revolution that's actually willing to be in front of this mess when the bullets are flying and round up enough patriots, because a lot of people were still loyal to the crown. It's not America was not founded by all these Americans. It was founded by half or even a fraction of these Americans. Okay? Need somebody who's willing to stand up to this tyranny. The tyranny's not coming from Donald Trump. Believe me, he starts doing shit like that, he's going to be the one who's rejected in the next time around, if it gets that far. But the people on the left are perfectly willing to impose all kinds of stuff on you and me. Forcing you to be not a racist, like you could be forced. You either are or you're not, and it's your choice. Nobody can force you to stop you. Environmental stuff, the climate change stuff, all this stuff's going to be forced on you.
Which of those examples do you want to delve into?
Of which?
Those two examples you just gave me.
It's
forcing you not to be a racist, forcing environmental stuff. Which one of those do you want to delve into?
I don't want to deal with either of them. It's because these are just things that are being foisted on us from outside.
I mean, that's what you believe, but
I don't believe that. I believe. It's what's being done. Let's take the banking system. They're now making the banks, they're not making them, but they're signing up onto this deal. I wish I was more fluent on all this stuff with governments saying from now on we're going to do these ratings on businesses. If you want to borrow money, it's going to have to meet the qualifications of the ESG, environmental, and I don't know, just like sociological, equity, diversity, environmental stuff.
That's the will of the people.
No, that's not the will of the people.
Not you.
That's the will of the globalists. The
globalists are people too.
They're not the people. A bank is not the people.
No,
and you won't be able
to try to force a bank to do something is obviously the will of the people.
You don't have to force the bank. The banks are signing up. This is all happening willingly.
Why would they do that?
because that narrows the game down. It puts them in charge of everything. It means that more smaller people can be excluded. It eliminates competition. It's basically a cartel.
We've already got that.
Well, this is
That's
going to
been
be worse
established.
cartel. It's going to intrude more and more on your own personal liberty, all of our personal liberties. I don't care. You don't like it, you don't believe it, that's fine. You don't have to. But if you start doing some
We
research, you can learn about it, and then you can
Many
be worried.
people who are like-minded as I am are totally on board with trying to push our environmentalist, globalist agenda on businesses and banks. So I don't
Push
see
it
that
up
as
the back.
tyranny. Any non-human beings, such as any corporation or any
Mhm.
other non-corporeal entity, I have no regard for their rights. If
Yeah,
you're not
but
a living being, I don't care about your rights.
okay.
Actually, you don't have rights. You have privileges. And the privilege of doing business in America is at the will of the people.
Not going to be in the future.
So how does this take away the will of the people if people are pushing
Well,
for it?
if it doesn't even come from the laws or at least the elected leaders of the people, then it doesn't come from the people at all, does it? If these are outside entities, international entities, international consortiums of entities, governments and corporate mixed together, imposing these
private-
rules on us, then it's not even from the American system at all. You don't even get to say anything about the elected representative because there is no elected representative. The guy who runs the UU, he's not elected. Or the woman.
I'm obviously
I
for
think it's the woman.
the power of the people. So I mean, if there's
Too bad.
a third party entity that's trying to influence the law in such a way that is not in line with the will of the people, I would of course be against it. And I think
Well,
most
then-
people are on that side.
Well, then you better
Um,
change your mind right now. Because that's what's happening.
But I'm just not seeing the connection there. Where is the connection between this idea of this nefarious entity and the actual like what laws or rules or regulations have actually come out of this or are imminently on the way, at least? The GSV.
I'm gonna have to go back and look at this stuff again. I mean, I read it, I understand it, I know what's going on basically, but I don't keep all this stuff in my head. It's not even my job to do that for you. I'm just telling you that it's available to be learned about. Then you can read it and you can form your own ideas. But plenty of people are already quite concerned about it, and enough to say, I'd rather have Trump than leave this to anybody else.
We don't
he
have to leave it
understands
to anyone. That's the beauty of the presidency, is that it's every 4 years we can switch it out. And we can impeach them.
This is why I went into the George Washington thing. A guy like this comes along, somebody who's in this situation, who can actually handle a situation once in a lifetime.
But he can't. He didn't. He failed.
You guys got rid of him. You got
all the
rid
more
of
reason
him.
to say he can't do it.
Well, sure. What do you want, Superman? You want to?
That's what you want. I don't believe that the president can save us at all.
I'm not saying he could save us. I'm not saying he could save us. We have to save us.
Sure,
But we
and
need
have
a
to
leader.
be able to do that.
We need a leader to be out front. We need a George Washington, and nobody else out there is coming up with that.
Okay, so let's get deeper in the philosophical aspect of it then. Needing a leader. Why does anybody need a single leader ever?
I think you're going into sociology or something here now.
I just
talk to Freud about that. Why do we need leaders?
I can't point to any leader in human history. I mean, maybe Gandhi. I don't know enough about him to say if he had something that was negative or not. But like, even his leadership style was not anything like what you're envisioning as far as taking charge and leading us to a assertive kind of future. He was a pacifist and very passive in his style. And that's the kind of thing that could allow people to take charge of their futures on an individual and collective basis in the way that you're talking about, though. So I'm really confused as to why you think that Trump is the guy.
Trump is the guy because he saw me and everybody who fits my demographic, blah, 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 philosophy, whatever. Okay. I'm not special. There's a whole bunch of people out there who feel the same as I do, understand things the same basic way. He saw that. He stepped in front, offered himself as a leader. We said, who the heck is this guy? Then he talked the talk, says, that's ringing right. This sounds good. This is a lot of things that were not common in politicians. Okay. Worrying about everything they say, parsing all their statements, everything's prepared. This was different. Saying things that would offend people, that would throw people off. This is like, you can't, how are you going to run for president talking like that? Well, that's exactly what we want.
Why?
I'm not looking for, because I don't want a freaking politician. Politicians have brought us to where we are. Democrats, Republicans, both. If the Democrat Party crumbles, too bad. If the Republican crumbles, that's great. We don't need the Republican Party as it was. The Bush version. We don't need it. We need an American Party. The Republicans that look like Americans, not like Democrats. So he got in front of it, and that's the leadership. Now, that's what we've seen. He got so much done. We didn't even go through the whole list. And there's more to be done. And number one, which is on his list, is get this bureaucracy under control. And he probably won't even be able to do it in 4 years. But he could set the part, and then we can bring up DeSantis in 28 and 32, and he can finish the job if he's got enough motivation. And it's our job to try to supply that motivation. Be the people that politicians have to respond to. If you and I and all the people like you and me join together, we can hold any of these damn presidents' feet to the fire.
Yeah, but how are we going to join together when we're allowing ourselves to be separated by the actions of a single man?
No, we allow ourselves to be separated by not looking into the things that are being talked about, by dismissing things. Well, it sounds like a conspiracy theory. Who throws that stuff around all the time? The media, trying to knock us off of Twitter and Facebook or whatever. They don't want us focusing on the real things. You have not seen on a regular news program anything of real serious import in a long time. You'll hear the same stories over and over. There's plenty of stuff they don't talk about.
You had said that you admired his willingness to give insults or to offend people.
That, but I said some of the things he says are offensive, sure.
And he didn't care, right?
Who, he didn't care, or I don't care?
Or you don't care, and he didn't care, right?
Well, I don't know if he cares or not, because that's inside him. I don't really care.
Well, there's a big difference, you would agree, between not caring if you're offending people because you're saying the truth and actually just being offensive and cruel. Right?
There's a difference, yeah.
And the former we may find desirable in a president. I can agree with that. But the latter, definitely not, right?
Okay.
So
yeah,
when he is making fun of a disabled reporter and imitating spastic convulsions, is that cruel, or is it just, I don't care if I offend people?
I don't know. It depends on who you're doing it to. I've had friends that we would do that with. Okay? I have people do that to me. I don't care. If you want to spend your time worrying about being offended or offending other people, you can do that. I don't really care.
Well, I'm not worried about it. I don't care so much as that it's a distinction with a difference, because I can admire a president who doesn't care if he offends people with the truth, but I can't admire a president who just is going around insulting people for.
Yeah, okay. I got that. I'm not looking for admiration for Trump.
I think you are.
No, I'm not. I'm
I
not. I'm
mean,
telling you, I'm looking for a general. I'm looking for a leader. You think George Washington was the best thing that ever, to walk the earth? Is
George Washington was certainly admired. He was certainly
he was not
respected by
admired
his
by
men.
he wasn't admired by all these other politicians that he was having to deal with. Some who became presidents. Okay, you think they talked nice about him all the time? No,
They showed the respect that he was due.
maybe.
Maybe behind closed doors, they could have talked all
Okay.
kinds of trash about him.
Okay.
But because
But we
he
live-
commanded
we live-
respect and was admired, you couldn't just go popping off at the mouth about him.
Maybe you're right. Maybe you're not. If we live in a world where there's a TV camera on the president all the freaking time, okay, and you want him to be nice, and all they did was beat the hell out of him, or try to in various ways from before the beginning. So I don't know. You want him to be playing nice guy with everybody and like he's going to church on Sunday? Go ahead. Hope for that all you want. I don't
even care
really
about
give
that.
a crap.
If he could just follow the Constitution and not try to disparage huge swaths of the population, we'd be fine.
Yeah. Which swaths are being disparaged?
Such as birthright citizenship.
Okay, well, I don't even know where you're pulling that from. Again, you come up with these things that I have never hear in the regular news, and I do pay attention.
What's the regular
to
news?
The mainstream media, the CBS, NBC, CNN, all those people. You think I'd have
This was
heard
certainly
about
all over CNN. I remember seeing it.
Well, maybe that's the problem. I don't spend much time with CNN.
Yeah, that is the problem.
Is it really? Because if it's really news, then I would think that the other ones would pick it up.
Not if they have an agenda.
Well, if they have an agenda, it's not been a pro-Trump agenda.
The Fox News didn't have a pro-Trump agenda for most of his presidency, if not all of it.
Oh,
almost.
it could. It seems to me that you're probably right. I haven't watched Fox News in years.
I mean, they're more popular than CNN, I believe, right?
They might be, but it's not necessarily something I pay attention to.
So,
In fact, I don't watch either CNN or Fox anymore. Been years for both.
I know that we've had conversations about mergers before, right?
Mergers of companies.
Mm-hmm. And monopolies and antitrust.
I suppose we have.
Can you remind me how you feel about that?
Well, we got laws that are there and supposed to break up the monopolies, and I wish they would use them more. But they don't seem to have any teeth anymore. It just the last attempt was I think was probably Microsoft, the big one that was most people would know about. I think I've heard of some other things since then, and that one may have actually been prevented. It's probably prevented the last merger that I heard of, but I couldn't tell you who it is. But it doesn't happen that much anymore. It used to happen a lot more, and I think it should be there's got to be some size limit. Otherwise,
so that's beautiful. Because I think we can agree on that. I think that we look at this example of the T-Mobile executives who stayed at the Trump's Washington hotel while seeking the green light from the federal government for a merger with Sprint. They spent $195,000 at that hotel and booked 52 nights. And the deal has since gone through, and now T-Mobile owns Sprint and they're dismantling it. And I submit to you that is behavior like this, these violations of emoluments clauses and things of that nature in the lower positions are the reason why these antitrust laws have no teeth, and the reason why monopolies are able to manipulate the supply and demand of our economy and drive us further into the hands of offshore manufacturers.
Well, yeah,
so
that's
if he's willing to engage, in this behavior, then he is still selling out America. I mean, let's not even talk about the Chinese manufactured Trump products
Yeah.
to this day.
Well, yeah. So this is a part. This is where the people are the bigger part of the deal. Okay. We can all feel the same as you just expressed, and I agree with it. Yep, in principle, at the very least. But we have to force them to make these adjustments. There's so many pressures from the world at large that are trying to move these politicians into these places where we don't want them to be. China with bribery and extortion and the honey traps, the globalists with their pie in the sky. We can make this whole world a greater place if we all just make one set of rules for everybody. Just plain already everyday corruption and bribery. Um, edge edge of of the law deals, stock trades, blah blah blah. Deals like Hunter with Ukraine, China. There's so many pressures, and what do we have to go against it? What kind of pressure do we have, or does anybody else have to keep these people? Okay, you got your basic morality idea. How many politicians are using that? I'm not sure. It seems less every day anyway. You've got that, and you've got us, the people. So I'm pretty sure as a Democrat or a Republican or a lefty or righty, we can get together on the ideas that you're talking about.
Sure, I
All
think we
right.
can, as long as we don't allow ourselves to be divided.
But we will be divided.
Yeah, we
So
have to align ourselves with our votes. That's the hard part. It's not so we can agree on these nebulous little ideas and even in larger principles, maybe, but we have to find representatives to embody and vote them in. And in order to do that, we have to agree on putting aside certain things and also being committed to other things
okay.
together.
Okay. I'm 100% agreeing with what you're saying. And I'm saying the big things are what we got to agree on and not this trivial stuff. You know, when you get all your big problems solved, then you can go back down the scale and get to your smaller stuff, maybe even your trivial stuff. But you got a big problem, you better take care of that first.
Sure. I think the problem is just that I get your trepidation with politicians, totally, but
Oh, yeah.
business people aren't any better. In
Well,
fact,
no.
that's why we have the military industrial complex as even a term. It's even a concept in the in the I can't remember that.
Yeah, the vernacular.
The vernacular, yes, because they are in bed with each other. They are bedmates, pillow
Yeah.
talk, all that
Yeah.
stuff is
Well,
going on under our
it's-
noses. And Trump admitted that he's participated in it before
Well,
when he was running for campaign. He thought that was some kind of a badge of honor, but to me, that just cemented my opinion that this is not the guy.
okay. Well, it was the term came up under Eisenhower. I think he's the one that coined it. Okay, so now you could put this back at that point. That's like the time when I'm born. And I don't know if he was being as pejorative as we would use it today, but you do need business to work with government for the national security. Government does not produce tanks and bullets.
Sure.
They buy them. So we do need business. We just need it to act as responsible citizens. And that is getting out of hand. It's getting less and less controllable all the time. If we want that, if you and I and everybody else watching this wants that, we got to get together and pressure the politicians.
Sure. And how do we do that? I'm not going to sell out birthright citizens or dreamers even for anything. I'm not going to sell out people for economy. I'm not going to sell out people for policy. I'm never going to do that. So unless we can agree on protecting the people first, we're not going to be able to go anywhere. I'm going to have to draw the line in the sand
okay.
there for me.
Yeah. See, but
where's your line?
You're picking a group of people to where you draw your line. All people is all people. There is no line when you say all people. Right. When you say all Americans, there's no line. There's no black and white. There's no male and female. There's no Democrat and Republican. If you say all people. But if you think you need to step out there and protect some group or another or promote some group or another, then you've lost the picture of all people. Where'd you go?
Why would I lose the participation or support of all people if I focused my support and protection on a specific group?
Do you remember Black Lives Matter?
Of course.
And what happened? People put up all lives matter signs. Doesn't that illustrate the whole thing for you right there?
I see your point. I definitely do.
Do we disagree with either of those signs?
No.
Okay. But the one sign is a divisive one, and the other one is an inclusive one. If you want to save America, you've got to save all of America's. What?
And yet the spirit behind the Black Lives Matter sign is that, and the All Lives Matter is an exclusive one.
Who's excluded by the All Lives Matter?
It's not the words, it's the spirit behind it.
The spirit? The spirit that you apparently are attributing to that. I see that to me, the spirit is all lives matter.
No, the spirit of the Black Lives Matter sign is Black Lives Matter too. Also,
they don't
because
say
apparently
they don't. No, it
doesn't have to. It's an emphatic statement.
It doesn't even have to be said in the first place.
No, but the spirit behind all lives matter is Black Lives Matter doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't. That's you're whacked. You're whacked.
The Black Lives Matter movement is in response to police violence, the extrajudicial taking of Black lives on the streets of America.
Okay.
This is a group of people that is particularly vulnerable.
That's what you say it is.
Okay, that's what anybody says.
That's not necessarily what it is at all, is it?
What do you mean?
Well, have you learned anything else about the Black Lives founders?
Okay, I said movement. Now, if you want to talk about the Black Lives Matter organization, I'm going to talk about that separately.
Okay. All right. Okay. So you're saying all the people who took up the signs but don't know nothing about the founders of it, they're
made their own signs. They just shared the sentiment, the spirit.
Okay. And what are we? Okay. So what are we saying about them? That
the spirit of those people are to try to elevate or to rescue the idea, not rescue. The spirit of that is to try to say Black Lives Matter as much as any other lives, and therefore should not be taken extrajudiciously.
Right.
So All Lives Matter comes along, and it's antithetical to the Black Lives Matter. It's only shown and is only created as a opposition to Black Lives Matter, which is saying your message, your spirit is wrong. So I can't agree with that.
It's not that the spirit is wrong. It's just incomplete. And if I understand, you feel like you have a specific thing that you need to point to, a particular injustice to point to that you want to remedy. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I'm saying when it comes to voting and pressuring politicians, we need to be united. It's got to be all people. Okay?
Yeah.
I mean, nobody should tell you, make sure you're voting for, you're pushing the pressure on the right politicians and neglect every other little thing that you've got concerned about in your life. We have to do both to whatever degree is necessary.
I mean, Just
So when
imagine
I'm
that Black
talking
Lives
about,
Matter never existed. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
sure, no, that's all right. I have no problem uh, pretending that or whatever.
Okay, so imagine that the first quote unquote lives matter sign was an anti-abortion sign saying infant or embryo lives matter or something like that, right? We would not make the argument that, well, because they're making this sign is divisive because they're not talking about all human lives, they're only talking about embryonic lives. We would never say that, right? It's obviously a ploy to rally support around the vulnerable in that situation.
I don't know. I think you're making up a hypothetical I can't follow and I can't work with.
Okay. I'll drop it then. I think
Yeah. So rallying together. See, here's the thing. If if half of the country votes for a Republican, half votes for a Democrat, and the one side wins, right? Say the Republican wins, Trump wins, and you guys are still on the other side. You didn't fully get behind Trump, and you're not really ready to hold his feet to the fire on the real things that are to be dealt with, the heavy stuff. Then as soon as you don't like what he does, you're against him, or vice versa. If we're against Biden, we're not working together to hold anybody's feet to the fire. If anything, our side is punishing your side, and your side is punishing our side. What good does that do?
not much. I would agree to that.
So as soon
That's
as we
pretty much what's
elect
going
a
on.
president, as soon as we elect a president, whoever it is, okay, it's the president. Half of us aren't totally thrilled. Now it's time for all of us, both sides, to hold that guy's feet to the fire.
Absolutely.
Is that what you find? Do you find half of the people holding, or 100% of the people holding any particular president's feet to the fire?
No. In fact, I
So
think that the impetus behind people not holding Biden's feet to the fire is the fear, the imminent threat of another Trump presidency.
you think putting down Biden would help guarantee a Trump?
I think that no, I'm saying that people are hesitant to criticize Biden because Trump is a threat, at
A,
least in their minds. If
a
you want to agree
threat?
with that,
How? A threat? How?
they perceive Trump's presidency, his possible future presidency, as an incumbent threat.
So you're saying Biden would run again and then he might lose if we put down Biden?
I'm saying that you would have a much easier time holding Biden's feet to the fire if Trump was not a factor, or just right
Well,
wing extremism.
the
I mean, it's the women's rights, the trans rights, the immigrants' rights. Those are the things that keep people on the left from caring about the things that you care about.
what makes you think I don't care about their rights?
Exactly. I think you do.
Well,
That's
then
the
why are
problem.
you?
The,
Why?
the
Why do
GOP
they? Why
needs
do
to
they
let
think
those
I
things
don't care
go.
about the GOP? See, the thing is, we have a constitution. The rights are already taken care of. The rights are already taken care of. We don't need special rights for anybody. That's what I'm saying. It's all lives, all people. We don't need separate groups. The groups just to fight against each other, to have arguments or whatever, to divide people, to argue, sitting over the coffee table, complaining about their favorite grape group
The
or
the
whatever you
rights can be
call it.
enshrined, but they must be protected, and that's a continuous battle.
Okay,
It
where
never
do you?
goes away.
Yeah, where do you protect them?
You protect them everywhere in
Signs
the
in the
law, in
street.
the you protect them in the signs in the streets. You protect them with legislation, and you protect them with litigation. You protect them with the courts and
The courts.
with war, with everything. It's
Courts.
all about protecting those rights, isn't it?
The courts is where you protect your rights, right?
Sure.
Somebody
Try.
violates your rights, you take it to court. Woman didn't want to make a cake for um, a gay couple. That's in the Constitution. But she had to take it to court. That's unfortunate, but she got to do it. She won. But
I mean, I wouldn't want to force anybody to make any cake. I wouldn't want to force a black store owner to make a KKK
right.
cake.
Which is why you and I don't get out there carrying signs saying make cakes for these people. It's trivial. It's not our problem. Go ahead. KKK.
So the question is a party going to take up the cause and start to push for these extra things like protecting the rights of the cake maker, right? That's a thing that might be important, but it's going to prevent us from addressing these bigger issues that you're so concerned about, isn't it? Because it's going to divide us.
What's going to prevent us from doing that?
Even taking up the plight of the cake maker.
I didn't take it up. I didn't take it up. I didn't take any signs up, and I didn't see any rally groups. Maybe there were.
But did your politicians?
They may have had comments about it. I'm not aware of any.
That's all it takes.
Push. I'm aware of so many anecdotal situations that seem to defy our American justice, but I don't see where we've got riots or demonstrations in the streets over.
It seems like a politician's life is one big marketing campaign. So whatever they say or do, it affects how you have to treat them and how you vote for them, right?
I'm not sure why you're going on this tangent here.
Well, we're trying to unify the people, trying to eliminate distractions, and focus on the bigger issues. So if a cake baker doesn't want to bake a cake, and we both agree that may not be the biggest issue at hand on any side, no matter what the cake is, no matter who the baker is, right? Then we don't need our politicians to say anything about it, right? They need to shut up about it, right?
Yeah, it'd probably be better if they didn't, but if you can
because
do that.
once they make any statement about it, now they've polarized. They've decided that some percentage of their potential voting block isn't going to vote for them, and the other percentage will. It's just going to be a gamble as to how it's going to work.
Yeah, that would be good, and I would probably advise a politician just like, this is a matter for the courts, this is a matter for the FEC, SEC, this is a matter for whatever, and not comment. But they're out in there, and the media just hounds them for questions.
Right?
Like, I mean, I watched Todd. What's his name? It's Todd's name on Beat the Press.
I don't know.
And he's hammering on a guy like Pence. He's asking Pence. He asks the same questions over and over, trying to get a commitment. I've seen Margaret Brennan do that on Face the Nation. It's like they just keep going at you. They want to get that answer. They want that answer that puts a division, that puts you over here so that these people won't like you, or over here where those people won't like you.
Well, that's the media's job, right?
It's a job to divide people, to cause that. Oh, okay. Maybe you're right. Maybe that's what the media has always been for.
Maybe.
I don't know. I don't go. I don't trust those sources for actual news. I go there to see what the hell kind of trouble they're stirring up every Sunday.
So, what are the big issues? What are the biggest issues that you think the Americans need to unite over?
Globalism.
Globalism. Okay. Let's devote a little bit of time to that then, shall we?
Yeah. Okay.
And then we'll call it a night. So,
let's see if it's
we have had this conversation before, so the audience will not be aware of that. So let's just quickly run through this idea of locus of control that you got out of that Thomas Sowell novel.
Okay.
The idea is it's a kind of a ratio between whether or not it's a ratio between how much control you have over the laws that govern you versus what? Tell me with that second part.
I don't think I remember this as well as you do.
Oh. um, the ratio between how much control you have over the legislation that affects your life versus the number of people affected. I would say. Sound about right?
No, go ahead. Keep going. Just
The idea is to keep that locus of control as close to a ratio of 1 to 1 as possible.
oh, okay. Yeah, you might have expressed it as a ratio.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how
So,
I understood it
for instance,
mathematically.
like, okay, so you've got questions about what your curriculum is for your kids in school. So you want the locus of control or discretion, was it?
Yeah, I think it was discretion. Yeah,
Locus
sorry.
of discretion to be as close to your school as possible. Okay, obviously you're the closest as a parent. Then you got your teacher, and then you got your school, and then you got a school board, and the locus keeps moving further away as you go up the ladder. You've got state control, and you might have some federal level um, stuff. And then you can go global if you want.
Right. It's about
Further,
diluting your ability to control your life. If my vote is 1 out of 300 million at the federal level, but it's 1 out of 27,000 or whatever at the local level, so I have more power with a locus of discretion is closer to a ratio of 1 to 1, which is not really possible in a community, but of course we try, right? And that's supposed to be a freedom maximizing principle, right?
okay, yes, yeah.
Right. Um, and I like the idea. I do think it has a lot of validity. Um, I don't think, I think that if a global government could be conceived that was well divided, such as the separation of powers were intended to be in America, then a global government would not necessarily be a bad thing. It could help to maintain the locus of control of discretion for people. But obviously, it could all go wrong also. And it's just a matter of how do you walk that line and how successful you are at the end, the consequences. But I
Yeah,
think that you
well,
think that it's just a bad idea, no shot trying,
no,
abandon it.
definitely not. Definitely not. The only thing you'll have to appeal to over a global governance is God.
So in America, we have a federal government and we have our state governments and our local governments, right? And because of the separation of powers and the Constitution's text itself, you have certain um, each level has its own lane to stay in, right? And when they cross over those lanes, you have a court to appeal to, right?
Okay,
Why couldn't a global government be set up in similar fashion?
could should, but the question isn't could. Is the question is should it?
Well, if it exists, it definitely should. I would agree because that would help maintain locus of discretion.
The locus of discretion is still going to be on a global scale. It's not going to be anywhere close to your school board.
Well, see, it's like it's assuming that every single law that this global government produces, every regulation affects and is applicable to every citizen of the globe.
You just said regulation.
Yeah,
Yeah, but regulations aren't laws.
right.
They're just put on you, and they affect everything. Regulations are made every day by the thousands, probably, and they
Yeah,
affect things. Some of them will affect you. A lot of them won't directly,
exactly.
except if it changes the availability of the kumquats that you want to buy at the store, you know, then maybe it's going to have an effect. But it affects the economy, it affects the society, and affects the job situation, and it affects the global markets. Well, we just got new regulations here, and if we follow these things, we lose profitability on line 6. we ain't gonna be able to make a dime on that. Well, move it to Mexico. Best thing we can do. So I mean, regulations can reach into the very cells of our lives. Laws can affect our limbs, perhaps organs, if you will. Basically, just give you a scale idea here. The regulation can reach down right into the cells. And you want those coming from an unelected, unaccountable body sitting in Geneva or wherever the heck it ends up
Okay,
being.
see, you just did it again. There's so many presumptions in that sentence right there. Unelected. I mean, I can't remember all the adjectives you
Not
just
a
used, but
presumption.
all of
Yeah.
them were presumptions. None of them are necessarily entailed by simply global government.
Already, global governance bodies, like the WHO or the World Bank, all over. You and I have no say so in any aspect of who runs those things or even who's even on the thing. In fact,
we could.
China, huh?
But we could.
No,
Yes.
we can't. No,
Why
we
not?
can't. We can't. Why? Where do you? Where are you getting this idea? Us? We're Americans. How are we going to vote on this? What the World Health Organization does?
Okay. You know what? I'm just going to look it up.
Okay.
I'm going to look up how the World Health Organization leadership is chosen. How is the WHO leadership chosen? With each new Congress, the Democratic and Republican. This might be a different thing.
Sounds
Yeah,
like
that's not it. WHO. Well, no, just type out World Health Organization. Sorry, everybody. It's headed by the Director General, who is appointed by the Health Assembly on the nomination of the Executive Board. Okay, so who's
just
the Health
pick from
Assembly?
amongst their own group. The leaders.
The
pick
World
from
Health Assembly is a forum through which the World Health Organization is governed by its 194 member states. It is the world's highest health policy, blah, blah, blah. So the Health Assembly, how did they get chosen?
I don't know.
The World Health
In fact,
Assembly.
we don't even know how. That's a problem, isn't it?
Well, I mean, we haven't never asked the question.
Yeah.
I never have asked the question. But
Nobody's even talking to us. Nobody's talking to us about it, are they? It's not in any of your news.
The Executive Board, blah, blah, blah. That's not it. It's governed by its 194 member states, blah, blah, blah. How? How is it governed?
I don't know. How did Chinese get to install their people at such high levels on so many of these things? Strictly democratic processes, you think?
Don't know. Sorry, I really need to know this.
Well,
We continue.
now's not a
talking
good
about
time
this.
to do it.
Well, it's very material.
This is homework. Everybody go home and research it. Learn as much about the global stuff that you can.
Sure. Okay, so fine. I'll quit digging on this right now because I'm probably not going to find the answer on a quick, easy Google search.
It's bad
But
TV.
why can't it be the case that each of those 194 member states can hold elections to appoint their member to the executive board?
What are you saying? They 194 delegates?
194 delegates.
Vote for the one who's in charge?
Yeah, those delegates vote for the one who's in charge. I mean, it's all
Sure.
just Republican democracy, isn't it?
It could be like that. It's not. There's probably no republicanism about it at all. Maybe some democracy, but I don't know. Voting for things is kind of like democracy. But
Republican democracy is defined by choosing representatives to execute the democratic will of the people instead of a direct democracy, right?
Yeah, the will of the people.
So
So they have to check with us to find out what our will is. So who do you think Klaus Schwab's going to check with the people of America to find out whether we're cool with
well, I
credit
understand that
scores?
he may not do that. Any individual is maybe corrupt or corrupted, but the question is, can we create a system to correct for or mitigate that corruption? And if we create a system which requires Charles Schwab to poll the population for their opinions, to actually hold miniature votes for things like that, why can't that be the case? Why can't we just envision how?
Sam. If you want a system like something like you're suggesting, you needed to do that when the things were established. Just like we cannot go back and imagine the Constitution in another way. We can do it, but it's just a mental exercise. We can't go back and change the original Constitution. Now we do have in the Constitution methodology for amending it. I don't know of any methods for amending whatever these guys are doing up there in the World Bank or the United Nations. don't think I don't think there's been on any ballots that I've had referendum to adjust the charter of the United Nations or anything else. Nobody's
Well,
asking.
ironically, I think the effort needs to be global to combat global threats.
Yeah, well,
If you're
sure.
saying that the World Bank is a threat to democracy and freedom all around the world, then it would take a global effort to stop that. It would take
Well, no,
coalitions in all the member countries
yeah,
to
slow
actually
down, slow
change
down.
it.
The world is not full of democracies.
Sure.
In fact, there's less democracies now than there were probably when you were born. But yeah, democracy, it's losing ground. Okay, now how are you going to force the globalists who are trying to replace democracy with whatever this new hybrid system's
They're
going to
not
be?
trying to replace democracy. They're trying to institute it globally.
They're not in. They're not. No, they're not trying to implement democracy globally. Oh, no wonder you're not against it. You think it's democracy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I feel like an idiot. You come into me with a
If
transmission
you
problem. I thought you had a flat tire. Yeah, no,
if
your
there are people
transmission.
who want to create global oligarchies or global um, monarchies or whatever technocracies or however you want to call it, I'm against all that. I'm only for a global democracy.
Then you just joined my side on the issue.
But that's still a globalist position, isn't it?
What?
Global democracy.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not big on that either. But you already said you don't want the other thing, a technocracy or oligarchy, and it's probably a combination or hybrid of some of that stuff.
So,
I
do
think it's
you think
probably
that
going to
a
be whoever's
global
got the most money wins.
let me ask you this, do you think that a global government of some kind is inevitable?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. So
Probably.
then it seems to me like you should join my side and we should work to establish a
Yeah.
global democracy
You don't
as a
have
matter of purely as a matter of practicality.
you don't have what it takes to bring it about. We'd
Nobody
be
does.
we'd be
We have
lucky.
to get it.
We'd be lucky if we could slow it down or stop it. But
Okay.
when we say global, okay, that's the whole concept. But will it reach the entire globe? Will it be 100%? Or can the U.S. be a standout like an island democracy separate from the globalist, blah, blah, blah? What about China? Will China stand out as separate? Or will it say, well, we'll get involved if we can run the whole thing? Probably that's more likely. But maybe they won't. Not everybody has to be involved in it.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like NATO or any other treaty and alliance of multiple member states. You start off with a couple, and then you build from there. I mean, we never got to that point with any of these other treaties, but I mean, this doesn't mean that we can't. We could establish a global de facto government with just treaties.
Yeah, it's kind of what you could have in the United Nations, perhaps. Are you there? I think you just fell out. Maybe you ran out of recording time. You run out of recording time or something?
My internet connection got interrupted all of a sudden, kicked me out.
Okay.
We've been going for like almost 2 hours now. I think it's a good time to wrap it up. How do you feel?
All right.
Let's
Yeah.
say at the end here.
What's that?
Anything else you want to say at the end here?
No, I love you, son. That's all.
Oh, I love you too, Dad. I'm just trying to save the world.
Together we can do it.
Yeah, we'll try. Okay. Well, thank you, Dad. I really appreciate it. So shout out to Maya, Titan Uranus, GA, Ox, anybody else in the chat? Lamar, Nicholas Lamar. Shout out to all of you guys. Trude Hell. Really appreciate all of you guys watching in the chat. And thank you guys for joining us tonight. It's been a fun episode. And join us next week. That's still not confirmed, but I'm trying to get a debate set up with Jim and somebody else. I'm not going to mention his name just in case he doesn't actually want to do it yet. But we'll see how that goes. And yeah, just remember, it's the bridges we build, not the bridges we burn, that give us the edge. Y'all have a great night.
Hey, I appreciate that.